right. Welcome to the Wrench Factor, where we explore the technologies and innovations shaping the future of industrial asset management. Here, we discuss the biggest challenges facing frontline professionals, sharing insights from the field and strategies to achieve best in class operations. Today, we'll explore the urgent intersection of education, generational knowledge transfer, digital transformation, reshaping manufacturing's future. As the industry loses decades of irreplaceable expertise on to retirement, it will reveal how forward-thinking organizations are turning this challenge into an opportunity through innovative mentorship and apprenticeship programs and digital knowledge capture. I'm excited to have Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial, on the show today. Thanks for being here, Jake.
Nick, always a pleasure to chat with you, man. It's been great.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you, and I want to kind of just go straight into it here because I've got quite a few things I want to chat with you about. So
yeah,
first of all, I know for those of you who don't know Jake, he's been involved with First Robotics for over 20 years in various roles, from student to mentor. He's been on ESPN with this program, and I want to talk to you first. What is First? Tell folks what First Robotics is all about, and how is this program sort of specifically transforming students' perceptions of manufacturing and technology careers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you go back to First stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. And I look at that as a major starting point in how I got into the manufacturing field and what I do today. So I was in high school, freshman, and joined the local high school robotics team. It's a competition where teams have a 6 to 8 week build period where they have a challenge that's put in front of them, and they have to design a robot, build the robot, program the robot, and then travel to different tournaments and compete. And for me, it was such a great thrill because I grew up with Lego as a kid, and being able to see firsthand on how the real world works once you graduate from high school and college. On people face deadlines, and how do you solve a problem within a deadline? How do you work with different teams? So it's a great experience, and that really pushed me into what I do today, which is leveraging social media to advocate manufacturing, to move the industry forward, to highlight the technologies that companies should be using. And going back to First, it was such a great thing. So this past year, or this past season, I officially been a part of First for 20 years, being a student, a coach, a mentor, working in their Lego League group, which is our young age, starting in like second grade. And then
you got a second grader at home. I heard.
Yeah.
Your daughter Kaylee is getting ready to join First as well.
So this summer we went out, we got a couple more of, the Lego. Actually, here's one sitting right here. So we have these Lego robots that we can build and program, and then they travel around mats, and, the kids can compete. And the whole idea is we need technology in manufacturing, and make that happen. We have to get the generation that's coming up, who are this Gen Z, Gen Alpha generation, where my 6-year-old my 7-year-old at the moment can program a robot. And so she can go log onto an iPad, say, I need a color sensor. I need to connect to that color sensor, and I need to know when that sensor turns a certain color. So you have the basic fundamentals of being able to do line following and touch and motion. It's really exciting to see what we can do, and getting this next generation excited about this type of stuff is what's really matters.
And what was, I mentioned at the beginning, you got a chance to be on ESPN for this. What was the sports angle or the human interest angle that got you there, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was so how I got involved is I got called up by the local organization that was running the one in West Michigan, which is a big tournament, and they said, hey, we know you've been doing this for a while. You already talk on camera a lot, so we think you'd be really good to talk on camera with ESPN. Would you mind doing a session with them? I said, sure, absolutely. So what ESPN is doing is we highlight all these different sports: basketball, football, baseball, soccer. And you have all these teams that compete in these sports, but they don't realize that there's teams of people who compete in sports on the academic side. And when you look at, there are more high schools, and I'll give you this, there's more high schools in the state of Michigan that have a robotics team than there are high schools that have football teams in Michigan. So when you look at, there are more students where I went to school, Granville High School. There are more students that are involved in their robotics program starting from 3rd grade all the way up to 12th grade than there are all the other academia or athletic sports combined. So there's more people at that school doing robot programs than there are people who are playing football or playing basketball or doing softball or doing cheerleading. We're advocating that because we need to show, listen, we can build robots, but when you have a 120-pound robot racing down a field going 25 miles an hour, smashing into another robot while trying to carry a bunch of balls and score, it actually is pretty exciting.
That's pretty cool. I love it. Well, so is it maybe the future of the NFL is that we've got robots playing and no humans? And I know that's sort of a brief sort of like,
how
people view the workforce in general. Are robots going to take all of our jobs and we're just going to be watching robots that do everything? I know you've challenged this notion, Jake.
Yeah.
But
No, I think we're a ways out from that still. It was about a month ago, China actually hosted the first ever humanoid robot half marathon. Of the 20 that competed, I think 2 finished in about 3 days. The rest of them started on fire and broke down. So we have a little bit of time before, we see the robustness of robots. But I think, I always go back to there was a movie that Hugh Jackman was in where you had the fighting robot. I have to go, but it was a Hugh Jackman movie, and robots were fighting each other. I think it will be a sport eventually, and I think as science is more celebrated, STEM is more celebrated, robots is more celebrated, you're going to see more people seeing those that turn into sports.
So, yeah, I love the sports angle, and obviously within manufacturing, we're seeing this come more and more. And I'm hearing folks that I get questioned, pretty regularly as I'm going out in the field, and folks are saying, "Hey, Nick, you see a lot of technology and what's going on." As I'm sure you get the same questions. Can you talk about some examples where you're seeing, automation maybe driving more employment rather than taking jobs away?
Yeah,
How does
I'll
that
give you.
look point of view? Yeah.
I'll give you a specific example of one. So in West Michigan, we have an event called Discover Manufacturing. It's a 2-week event where we bus kids who are in middle school and high school to manufacturing facilities so they could see what jobs are available when they graduate high school. When I was there, I toured a manufacturing or a machine shop facility down in Middleville, so about 45 minutes from where I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I was talking with the owner there, Tom, and Tom has had this machine shop for 25 years. And they make a bunch of parts for tier 1, tier 2 automotive. They've done some stuff actually even for like SpaceX and Blue Origin. So a lot of cool stuff. But one of the jobs that they were doing for a tier 2 manufacturer was getting quoted out again to a bunch of other companies. And a few of those companies were overseas. What ended up happening was their cost of product was just a lot higher than what those parts could be for produced overseas. So then they turned and said, okay, what if we automate this? So what ended up happening was they put in 3 collaborative robots to do lights out machine tending, where then they were able to keep that job, keep 7 of those machinists employed, because all of a sudden you can still do those tasks. You can still keep the business. You're able to reskill 3 of those 7 technicians who went out and got robot programming and training, who can now run those robots. And now all of a sudden, now that they implemented those robots, they're getting more and more jobs that they weren't able to quote before, because robots, one, kept jobs local because they were able to compete in a global economy where all of a sudden cost material might be different, but when all of a sudden your supply chain's local and stuff is right here in Michigan, they're able to compete. So those robots at the end of the day save jobs. Those robots created higher skilled, higher paying jobs for those workers. And the coolest part about all this is it was his son that said, "Dad, we have robots in our school. You should put robots on your machine shop floor."
Yeah.
And that's how the whole thing started. So when you go back and you look at robots aren't taking jobs, Robots are creating opportunities for companies to be more competitive in now a global economy where people can buy products from anywhere, from any country. Robots are improving quality. They're creating better jobs that aren't as dull and dirty and dangerous. They're creating higher paid jobs because we need robot technicians or robot programmers coming out of high school to be able to do these jobs. And at the end of the day, it's moving the industry forward. And I think that's what, allows, when we leverage robots, we leverage automation, we leverage digital technology. It's making our industry better on all fronts, from a people's perspective, from a productivity perspective, and then also from just a general quality of products as well.
Yeah, I have to. I mean, I have to plus one that. I agree. It perfectly aligns with the experience I'm seeing out in the field when I go to clients, across the country, and they had some jobs that they could barely staff if and it wasn't even a salary issue. They were just ergonomic challenges where people would get hurt. They were very difficult to do. They were very dirty.
Yeah.
And they've been able to, leverage automation and, robotics to sort of offload those tasks to these machines, and they're resulting, way that what they've been able to do with that workforce since then is upskill them, like you're suggesting, is you're seeing as well, pay them more to now maintain and keep this automation equipment running. And now, that the jobs they couldn't even get folks to do for any wage or any length of time are now being automated and creating, I think, exciting opportunities for folks to up level. And I think there's a misconception that some of this robotics equipment is you need a PhD to be able to keep it up and running. But there's really, I think, a relatively short on-ramp to be a useful participant in these ecosystems, and then with a lot of opportunity for advancement and further education. So
and it's one of those things, is this next generation, right? My daughter, going back to the Lego set here, right? She learned how to not only program it, but all the design instructions were on her iPad, right? So it goes back to, we're no longer wanting paper-based work instructions to tell us how to work and tell us how to solve problems.
Right.
It's all about real-time accessibility. She was able to not only watch instructions, but if she had a question, she could hit literally a question mark and would actually play a video of how to put some of these more complex assemblies together. And so all of a sudden, when she built this, she was 6 at the time. That model was for 10 plus or whatever Lego rates it for. So all of a sudden, you're making difficult processes and operations more accessible to, I would say, a untrained, which we mean my daughter, who hasn't built robots before, an untrained workforce. And so, when I go back to why I do what I do when I'm doing all these keynote speaking, is I use my daughter as an example. And I say, listen, my daughter was facing the exact same situation manufacturers face, where they don't know how to do something. But when you leverage digital technology to make that matter, and that's why it's so important for me reaching this next generation is, and then communicating what that generation's learning to the workforce, is saying, listen, digital tools and technology is what's going to move our industry forward. The next generation is learning that right now. Are you as a company embracing those digital tools and technology to move your productivity forward, but also prepare when this generation comes and looks for jobs in the next 5 to 10 years? Are you going to have the resources available for them to be able to solve your problems like this?
Brings us to like a sobering statistic you've talked about. Like, we have 650,000 job manufacturing retirements or jobs from the manufacturing sector last year alone.
Yeah.
And I think you calculated it was like 26 million years of tribal knowledge.
Yeah.
So when we're talking, I mean, you bring up a good point with this. How do we transfer that knowledge? What are some of the innovative methods that you're seeing? And I think that Lego example right out of the gate you just shared there is like bringing that instructions to the iPad there for your daughter to be able to be productive. Whereas imagine if she's sitting there digging through a binder that Lego put out.
100%. And it goes back to, what's the best tool a manufacturer can have? It's in their pocket. You can record everything that your existing workforce does in here, document, put it in a folder, right? If you have a maintenance person going out and replacing a belt on a motor, or going out there and replacing something, document it, record it. Don't let that tribal knowledge leave as Bob, who's been at your facility for 45 years, is going to retire, and you're hosting a retirement party June of 2026.
Yeah.
What are you doing not capturing everything?
Yeah.
And even then leveraging AI, which I'll get into a whole topic on that, but like take all that, put AI on top of it, and then when a person has a question, they'll find it. They're going to find Bob's video in 15 years from now, and they have to do maintenance on that drive again, or that motor, or that, that box.
They'll know what to do, right? And it's funny because I can say the sort of, the cliche joke all the time of, used to make your teachers, you kind of make fun of how teachers used to say, you got to learn how to do the math. You're never going to have a calculator in your pocket. Well, in the future. And obviously now we've got a supercomputer in our pocket.
Yeah.
But so many manufacturers still operate with that old math teacher mindset that, we're not going to have these resources available to us. But there's so much more opportunity today than there was before to help sort of fix that. You just need a path and a strategy. And it's great to see that more and more folks are starting to talk about this and raise awareness, because
it's a lot less intimidating. I think a lot of times companies are intimidated when they want to say, oh, I don't want to implement this brand new system. I don't even know where to start. We don't even do that stuff. We have a bunch of old people, who've never done this before. Intimidation and I think is one of the biggest reasons why companies aren't adopting manufacturing. But when you show them the success stories that exist and saying, listen, my daughter can do this. She can program stuff. She can make these things. I know you guys can, because manufacturers are some of the most clever, capable people out there who can solve problems on the fly. Technology is just a tool to make it easier for you.
So between like what you're doing with your STEM and FIRST robotics advocacy work and in your discussions with hundreds of companies, how do you see these digital solutions bridging that gap between that experience and incoming digital native generation? What's that? How do you sort of see that those working styles coming together and everything kind of flowing?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that manufacturers are always struggling with is, how do I keep my existing workforce happy while I want to bring in a new workforce that has all these new ideas and technology, right? How do you create that cross compatibility between the Gen X and the Boomer generation and the Millennials and Gen Zs, who are the tech savvy generation? And a lot of it has to do with, that culture change, that leadership change mindset. I think one of the biggest things that we need to showcase is the older generations have the knowledge, the younger generations have the motivation and the technology. We need to find a great where manufacturers can truly be successful is when they are able to showcase and communicate to the older generations that their knowledge is wanted. The next generation wants to learn what that older generation has. And the best way many times for them to do that is for them to learn through that technology on they learn. So, if a millennial's out there and they're recording something, don't be upset or not being intimidated. They might just be learning differently. Or if there's a question, the first time when there's a question that's asked, more than likely they're going to quickly pull out their pocket and pull up their phone, because this is how they get their information. And it's one of those things as well. They don't know as much, or that, or they say, well, they're not as skilled or trained, and they just rely on their phone. Yeah, there is that area, but it's one of those things is that's just the way things are now. Is it bad? Are we too reliant on technology? I wouldn't say we're too reliant on technology. I would say this generation has learned that they can embrace technology to do the tasks that were the boring, that were the dirty. Why do I have to sit in front of a whiteboard with 100 sticky notes to try and find what is the best order to do this scheduling? What is the best order to do this maintenance overview? What is the best way to do this out do I have the right spare parts? Why put yourself through all that work when you can take a picture of it and have AI create that work path for you? It's one of those things where it's different, but it's not bad. And so that's why when we look at the generations, finding that compatibility of they have the knowledge, they have the motivation, put those together. That's how you can create some great culture and success in the industry.
Yeah, I think it's a fear of change for sure. I mean, the technology, good or bad, the level set of where everyone is today, you could definitely argue till you're blue in the face, but at the end of the day, it helps people be more efficient, safer, and more effective, and perhaps most importantly for the businesses out there and the organizations, is it's going to be a table stakes requirement to stay competitive in the global economy. So
Yes,
you want your business
100%.
sustainable, and you want to have that legacy of those folks who've worked, put their blood, sweat, and tears into those operations over the years. How are you going to pass that forward to the next generation the way they can receive it? I see so many folks who are like, well, I had to go to walk to school uphill in the snow and broken glass both ways, and they should too. And I think that mindset is starting to it's come
Yeah,
around, and it's seen some
exactly.
lines. And
Exactly.
I think the exciting thing for me and the big takeaway is like how much enthusiasm there is across the young people. But like I feel like an old person saying young people, but the kids and the students, that they're excited about it. You were telling me you had an event last night with
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A. Yeah, tell folks about this. This is fantastic. I will. How
Yeah.
did it go?
So I happen to know the franchise owners of the local Chick-fil-A. Our families are probably our family is a weekly visit to Chick-fil-A. They have kids eat free on Tuesday nights for forever. So we've always gone on Tuesdays. And I was talking with the owners. I said, hey, I got robot dogs. Do you want to bring robot dogs in sometime? So I have my robot dogs, Clark. They walk around, and said, would it be fun for that? So we had 3 robot dogs interacting with families and kids as they come in. We can talk to their parents about, here's programs for your kids at all these different schools that you can get your kids involved in. And I think a lot of people is they only see robots on TV. They never see robots in person. And so once you can give an individual, a kid, a parent, real life experience on what that looks like, I really think their mindset changes, especially where the news always says robots are doing this negative thing. Robots are taking these jobs. Robots are doing this. But when you get in person, you're able to drive that robot dog and steer of a controller. I think it breaks down a lot of barriers when it
100%.
comes down to the negativity of what robots or automation can do for people. And it was a great experience to go out there with my wife and kids and our friends and their kids, just to come out and have some Chick-fil-A and have conversations about robots and the need for robots in our industry.
I love that. I love the enthusiasm you have for the advocacy, the fact that you go and get your boots on the ground, getting folks excited in person. We need more folks like you out there doing this great work, Jake. And I'm glad that you're able to help sort of share that recipe book for folks and give that playbook out to say, hey, here's how you go and get kids excited about it. Because I think you're spot on. That breaking that fourth wall, showing that we have so many Hollywood movies where these robots are just going haywire.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Robots aren't all dangerous and horrible. Robots are actually doing some pretty incredible, amazing things. Like today, I posted a video on my second channel on today's National Hamburger Day. May 28th is National Hamburger Day. I posted a video on robots making hamburgers. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that type of stuff is just, hey, creating those small connections is what it's gonna be really exciting for industry.
Amazing. Well, Jake, I want to thank you so much for spending some time today with us to share your work and giving us the opportunity to help
Absolutely.
continue to spread the word. This is super important stuff you're working on, and thank you again for being on today.
It was great to be on. Always a pleasure to talk to you as well.
Yeah. Well, folks, quick sort of action item is MaintainX has now launched a MaintainX for students. It's a new program that helps give students complimentary access to MaintainX to help shape the next generation of reliability leaders. Education programs can use this as well. So we'll have a link in the comments here below to check that out. The Wrench Factor is live every other week. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We're now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. So we're looking forward to seeing you again next time. And thank you so much again, Jake. Take care, everyone.
It's always a pleasure.